Good evening, and it's great to have you with us as we near the end of another week together. And we begin tonight with Russia's war in Ukraine. There is new evidence tonight that the Russians are repositioning their forces to encircle the capital of Kyiv. Some Russian units now just 9 miles from the city center. And tonight, Russia continuing to accuse the U.S. and Ukraine of preparing to use chemical weapons. The U.S. warning the world that this is right out of the Russian playbook, that the reality is the Russians could be preparing to use them. In fact, tonight, a senior U.S. official saying the Russians are bringing chem bio suits to Ukraine. Russia conducting new airstrikes on the city of Dnipro, Ukraine's third largest city. And new attacks tonight in Mariupol, where they hit that children's and maternity hospital already. Now a missile striking an apartment building, reports of shelling there every 30 minutes. The emergency services headquarters there destroyed tonight, reportedly cutting off communication to the outside world. The mayor calling it Armageddon. And new satellite images tonight of that massive Russian convoy outside Kyiv, once more than 40 miles long, now largely dispersed and redeployed. New video tonight of Ukrainian soldiers engaging with Russian troops battling to regain control of a village near Kyiv. Tonight, President Zelensky in a new message saying if you want to find out Russia's plans, you should look at what Russia is accusing others of. A clear reference to Russia accusing Ukraine and the U.S. of potentially using chemical weapons. President Biden was pressed on this today. Would there be a U.S. military response if Russia uses chemical weapons, and what he said? Mary Bruce is standing by live at the White House with that. But we're going to begin tonight with ABC's senior foreign correspondent Ian Pannell, leading us off from Kyiv again tonight.
Tonight, Armageddon is how the mayor of Mariupol describes the relentless siege and bombardment of his city. Officials there say it's being shelled every 30 minutes by the Russians and that most of the targets are in residential neighborhoods.
The situation is awful. Russian army continues to do airstrikes, air bombing, artillery shelling.
An overnight missile strike on Mariupol's emergency services center reportedly cut one of the last lines of communication to the outside world. Along the coast in Mykolaiv, the mayor claims Russians have been using cluster bombs, which disperse bomblets over wide areas. While the UN stopped short of saying Russia's committed war crimes, it is now saying it's received credible reports of Russia using cluster bombs in populated areas like Kharkiv. The deliberate use of these weapons on civilians is a war crime. In Dnipro, in the east, more disturbing images of the aftermath of a Russian airstrike, this time destroying a shoe factory. An elementary school was also reportedly hit. Even in cities that have fallen, there's still popular resistance. In Melitopol, residents have been protesting the occupying Russian forces. The mayor has been insisting publicly the city is still part of Ukraine. Today, an advisor to Ukraine's president claims this video shows the kidnapping of the mayor by a group of heavily armed Russian troops. Russian authorities tonight saying they've opened a criminal case against the mayor on charges of aiding terrorism. Despite the dire situation in many parts of the country, there are ominous warnings today of how much worse it could get. Amid fears, Russia might stage a chemical weapons attack in the country. The World Health Organization's urging Ukraine to immediately destroy pathogen samples in labs because Russia's war in the country risks an accidental spill. And today, Moscow saying Europe's largest nuclear power plant now belongs to Russia. Its forces took control of the facility last week after fighting that triggered concerns about a potential nuclear disaster. Across Ukraine, the Russians are intensifying their attacks on major cities. Airstrikes expanding to 2 airfields in western Ukraine. New satellite images show the Russian convoy that once stretched 40 miles northwest of the capital has dispersed and repositioned into attack positions and are as close as 9 miles from the city centre. There's been intense fighting near the outskirts of the capital.
We've just seen what we think is an air intercept. You can see the streaks up in the sky there as we're not clear whether it was Russian jets, was it Ukrainian jets, but that's the reality on the ground for people living inside the capital today.
Ukraine's President Zelensky said today the country is reaching a breakthrough moment and is heading towards victory. But that may seem like a dream to many here.
We're seeing hundreds, thousands of people now fleeing frontline towns. Most of these people are from the town of Bucha. They've been hiding in their basements. caught in the middle of the bombardment. Some are saying they've seen Russian tanks and armoured vehicles inside their village, and they've left with what little they can carry, many of them waving white flags to signal that they're civilians and shouldn't be harmed.
Katerina Sapsai managed to escape from Bucha with her grandmother today before it got too late. Surrounded by the Russian army, the town's been bombarded since the start of the invasion.
Being without water and electricity for almost 7 days is not fun, so we decided to evacuate today.
Yeah, and is there much fighting going on there?
Yes, you can actually see a lot of Russian tanks and explosions. Like, you go to bed every day with explosions. You wake up today at 5 a.m. I woke up with the sounds of explosions, so yeah, not fun.
Her grandmother, Katerina Romanivna, has lost her home, left her village, and is out in the cold. But incredibly, accepting the uncertainty of her future.
How do you keep your spirits up?
What else can you do, she says.
The resilience of the Ukrainian people. Ian Pannell joins us again tonight from the capital of Kyiv. And Ian, Russian forces obviously relentlessly raising the pressure on the capital. Where do things stand tonight? How close are they?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Kremlin has troops about 9 miles to the northwest of here, and although they haven't pushed any closer for days, US officials are seeing rear elements moving up to support them. And to the east of here, we know that they're about 15 miles from the city limits. Now, I don't think they've got enough troops in place to encircle the city completely yet, but taking Kyiv is clearly Putin's primary objective, and it feels like the net is starting to close in tonight.